Okay, well, why don't we get started? We've got, over well, first of all, my name is Dr. Craig Hazel, and I'm joined by Dr. John McPhee, for those of you that don't know us. But I hope that all of you over these last several months have been keeping really well. Obviously, this COVID pandemic that we've been faced with has been challenging, we'll say. And with challenge comes some opportunity. And, obviously it's been one of those events in our lives that has given us the ability to maybe increase in other dimensions in our life. I hear from patients all the time. They're like, you know what, I'm getting outside more than ever. I'm starting to change up the way I do my exercises. And that's had a fantastic effect on my fitness. I used to be a gym goer, and now I'm doing more outdoor fitness events, and I just really love it. A lot of people are doing more recreational things, whether it be boating or camping or hiking or just all sorts of different things. And also, too, it gives us a chance to look at how we take care of ourselves in all dimensions of our lives. And we're going to talk a little bit about that. But if you're anything like me, the stress of COVID has kind of also taken maybe a bit of I wouldn't say a negative, well, it is a bit of a negative effect on many people, not only in mind, body, and spirit, but also too when it comes to some of our nutrition. Because, well, I don't know about you, but when you're stressed, you typically crave some things that make you feel a little bit more comfortable. And that can come from some of our earlier childhood and teen years where we were satiated with certain foods to help us to make us feel better and just get through crisis and challenge. And those kinds of things can kind of blend into our lives when we are faced with challenge. But now that I'm back in the office and I'm back to my normal rhythms and routines, I find that I'm able to keep better care of my nutritional intake and my fitness and my kind of thinking and mental health in a much, much better way, because I'm back into a rhythm and a routine that is much more consistent. So Dr. John and I are keenly aware of all of this because, again, seeing and taking care of people all week long, we get to understand some of their challenges and their challenge spots and where they get hung up. So what we're going to do is over the next 4 weeks, we want to share with you some ideas and some concepts that are going to help you to better understand how you can do that. And we're going to start off this month with Eat by Design, and that's going to help us to understand what are some of the nutritional requirements and intakes that we need to pay attention to in all aspects of life, not just when we're in a state of crisis, but when we're feeling great and everything is going as well as possible. And one of the things that we understand keenly is there is a mountain load of information when it comes to nutrition. When we look at Amazon, I think it's something around 160,000 books just on the concept of nutrition. That can be anything from cookbooks to nutritional things that help you for arthritis and help you for fitness and exercise and performance and everything. And so it can be really hard to understand, like, what is the best way to approach your nutritional health. And so what we've done is we've also been in that same boat with you and understood that there is such a mountain load of information that you can sift through. And what we've done is we've actually tried to narrow it down into what are the core principles upon which you need to focus and pay attention to within your life, so that way you can start to build your nutritional requirements around those core principles. And once you achieve those and accomplish those are critical and essential to expressing the most outrageous level of health that you possibly can. And I say that because what we understand is that within our DNA, within our bodies, within our blueprint that makes us who we are, we understand that there's certain requirements that are necessary in order for us to express health. If we don't provide those requirements in sufficiency and purity, then we start to express symptoms, sickness, illness, and disease. But if we provide them with sufficiency and purity, then we're going to achieve and let our cells and our tissues and our body start to vibrate at a higher energy level, because we're providing the body with what it requires in order to express health. When you were born and those two cells, one from mom, one from dad, came together, that formed one cell, then it blossomed into 2, then 4, then 8, then 16, and so on. And then you started to make cells for your eyes and your heart and your lungs and your digestive tract and your spinal cord. And you basically started to form fingerprints, and your color of your eye is completely unique to everyone else on the planet. You are an extraordinary individual, but you came from a blueprint of information. And in order for you to express health, that blueprint must be read in a proper manner, and you must provide the proper requirements and nutrients to allow your cells to function the way that they're supposed to. Okay, so with this mountain of information, we want to try to sift through that. And that's really what the Life by Design system was all about. And it's a system as so much as it's a concept and a philosophy and an understanding that allows us to understand what your body requires in order to express optimal health. And there's different components of it. There's 4, and you can see them behind me. You can see them on your screen. First, there's the Think by Design, which is really about understanding what your purpose is, what your mission and what your vision and what your reality of understanding of what it is that health is. We're going to talk about health like we always do, but in last month's webinars, we were talking about all the other different categories within your life. It could be your social health, it could be your relationships, your parenting, your financial, your vocational, all of those different dimensions and categories within your health, and understanding and having clarity in each one of those categories is paramount to expressing and exhibiting and achieving and just experiencing the highest level of health that you possibly can. So then we've got the Eat by Design, which we're going to talk about. And then we're also going to have Move by Design, which is what are the fundamental requirements that your body needs to express health from a fitness and movement patterning level that is in, what's the word I'm looking for? In consistency with what your body needs to express health. And then finally, the Power by Design, which is the wonderful thing that Dr. John and I get to do every single day with patients, is making sure that the one central system, the one organ, the one tissue that controls and coordinates every single thing in their body is functioning at the highest level possible, and that's the nervous system. So by making sure that the nervous system is operating and controlling and coordinating all of those little actions from the time those 2 cells came together, the first organ that was formed in your body is your spinal cord and nervous system. It is the most important thing because it runs the show. There's nothing that goes on in your body without your nervous system being aware of. So the Power by Design is all about making sure that that nervous system is functioning well. Then when you provide it with the good mental health and you've got great nutritional status to provide nutrients to allow your body to vibrate at a higher frequency level of an expression of health, and then you move your body in a way that allows for fitness and enhancement and strength and performance. It's a 3-legged stool. None of them are more important than the others, but when they're all working in coordination, health is your ultimate the ultimate pinnacle of what you express. So in a nutshell, that is the Life by Design concept. And I think now what we're going to share with you is some diet tips, some things that you need to understand that are going to help you to lose weight, feel great, function better, heal better, sleep better, everything better. So we're going to talk about that. Dr. John's going to take over and he's going to dive right into that.
And every Eat by Design workshop that we've hosted, I always start with this first question, which is why eat? You know, as humans, why do we need to eat? As an animal, why do we need to eat? Because of course, we're just part of the animal kingdom. And I want to, think kind of more philosophically, because we can think of lots of reasons why we choose to eat certain foods or why we choose to eat a certain way. That can come down to often when I ask this question to a group, the answer that comes out are like, well, like social reasons, maybe or emotional reasons. Like lots of us eat. Dr. Craig shared his story early on in this global shutdown, and when we're isolated at home, feeling a little bit maybe feeling a little bit depressed or isolated, that those can motivate us to eat and maybe choose foods that make us feel good in the short term, but we know are not good for our health in the long term. So there's lots of those reasons: family, background, cultural reasons why we choose to eat certain foods. Actually, the foods that we typically eat on a day-to-day basis are largely influenced by our past choices, and often comes from like our childhood. So the foods that make us feel good, that satiate us. So those are all kind of superficial reasons. But what I want to get at with this question is, why is it that we have to eat at like kind of a fundamental level? And there's really two answers. Usually people are quick to throw these out as well, or at least the first one, which is energy. So we need to eat to fuel the body to be able to run all the various processes that are going on. You think of the simple concept of calorie. That's just a representation of energy contained in a food. And we need to consume a certain amount of energy to be able to, for the body to be able to operate. And particularly when we talk about an eat by design, we want to make sure that we're getting the highest quality fuel. Think of like in a jet or in a spaceship, right? Like they have to use this like super high quality, high density energy or fuel to make sure that spaceship or the plane is able to do the task that it's set out to do, fly through the air, which is crazy in and of itself. So the first reason why is we need energy. There's actually one that I would argue is even more important, and that's that what we eat provides the building blocks that make all the new cells in your body. We often think that once we get through our childhood, I mean, if you've had kids, you watch them grow, and you see the changes. They're obviously building lots and lots of new cells to be able to grow at the rate that they do. But when we reach adulthood, we kind of lose that concept. But the fact is that your body is really is regenerating all the time. So there's cells in your body regenerating, like literally in the span of this talk, there's probably millions of cells that have died and have been replaced by new healthy cells. And we want to make sure that just like if you were to set out and build that beautiful house that Dr. Craig showed the blueprint of, if you were to have this dream home that you want to build, you're going to buy the best quality materials that you can afford to build that house, because you want that house to last the longest possible, right? To support, protect your family, and also to get you the best return on that investment in the future. There's really nothing different about the human home, right? The one home that we can't replace, which is your body. And if if all you did was walked away after this concept, I think this could be revolutionary in terms of what you choose to eat. Because if you actually think every time you grab a piece of food to put in your body, if you think, okay, this is going to become me, right? Literally the cells in this food are going to become the building blocks that make the cells in my body. That's pretty cool. And we want to make sure that we're choosing the highest quality materials, which we will refer to as the nutrient density of the food, so that your body can build the best, most robust, healthiest cells possible. And actually, when it comes to eat by design, that's one of the main criteria that we look at, is we want to see what are the foods that have the highest nutrient density, okay, so that they've come packed with the highest quality materials and have the lowest toxicity. It's a concept that was new to me, when I first dove into this idea that most foods have some cost, right? When we eat them, there's some amount of toxicity. Great example of this is, plants. So almost all plants, especially like vegetables, so anything that you think of the plant is trying to just protect itself. And so it has built into it, based through, that's developed through evolution, ways of protecting itself so that it can continue to thrive. And so often it's leaves, its roots, those contain things that are toxic to the body. And the degree of toxicity, it definitely ranges. And we want to consider, okay, well, what are the foods that have the lowest amount of toxicity and also have the highest amount of nutrient density? So we're always looking at those two questions and trying to maximize one and minimize the other. So that's what we've attempted to do with Eat by Design, is really to give you some clear criteria to be able to make choices that fulfill those two criteria. And number one, if we just jump right into this, of these top three tips to build a healthy diet, the first one is to eat real food. And it sounds so simple. In fact, we know that a lot of the best results that we gain, not just when it comes to our health, but often in life, comes from the simple steps done consistently over time. And this is a great example of that. Just simply eating real food most of the time is going to make a big difference. So what do I mean by real food? Well, you could probably answer this question. You could describe it as like a whole food, right? It could be, a great way to think about it is a food that has one ingredient. So an apple is an apple, right? Steak is beef. You can look at some of the foods that maybe have a couple of ingredients, like one that pops to mind. I just made sausages. So that has a few ingredients in it, but the primary part of it is the high quality pork and beef that I put in there. So think of one ingredient. That's a great way to think about it. We used to be able to say foods without a barcode, but of course now everything has a barcode, so we can't apply that rule. But if you were to simply do that, say, just make a commitment to yourself, like next 30 days, I'm gonna, 95% of the food I'm gonna eat is gonna have one ingredient. It's gonna be a whole food. That would make a huge difference, because a lot of the health problems ultimately that we see, and not just in our practice, but in general in society, at least part of the problem is the amount of processed foods that we're eating. Lots of stuff gets hidden in processed foods. Most processed foods come packed with sugar and maybe a high amount of salt, amongst a whole bunch of other products that are just not good for your body. Talk about toxicity, right? Like there's a lot of toxicity baked into a lot of processed foods. Not all of it, but a lot of it. So eat real food first. Now, we can also look at this, and I could change this slide and change the concept completely if I just put a little apostrophe in front of the food, right? So eat real food first. And I love this idea. We're borrowing this from Dr. James Chestnut, who's a mentor of ours. And he it kind of blew my mind when I thought about it. He shares a story of a client who is desperately trying to change their diet, but they just keep getting caught up in the foods that are, giving them like kind of a short-term hit, right? The junk foods that make you feel good in the short term, but make you often feel awful in the long term. And his advice is, okay, you don't have to cut it out because there's an emotional cost to cutting out those foods entirely at the beginning. But to train your brain out of that is simply just to eat the real food first. So, for example, Friday night, you're craving pizza, okay, or a bag of chips, but you have made this commitment that you're going to eat real food. So, yeah, what you can do is, make a salad with a bunch of, high quality foods, or eat a nice big healthy grass-fed steak first, and then, if you're still hungry and you still have that craving for the bag of chips, then eat the chips, right? But at least you're training your brain to put the high quality food in first. You're optimizing in terms of your metabolism. You're getting that high quality nutrient density in first. And then I would guess that you'll probably be less likely to overconsume in the junk food. So eat real food, and eat real food first. Okay, that's number one. Excuse me. Number two is to eat protein with every meal. This one is a little bit surprising for some people. And my own background is, I was a vegetarian. I was raised vegetarian, like literally from the age of 0. 28 years I was vegetarian before I had my first steak, actually. And now I'm a big proponent of eating protein with every meal. So what changed? And really, I'll save you the long-winded story of my own trajectory. But simply put, I was presented with information that I had previously ignored or maybe just wasn't exposed to. But we know that high-quality animal protein, it comes packed with really the highest nutrient density that we can find. We know that when it comes down to all the micronutrients, minerals, and vitamins, often the best source of those micronutrients comes from really healthy animal sources. Not to say that you can't be healthy as a vegetarian. Okay, so I want to make sure I'm clear on that. You can. I would just argue now, given what I know personally and the way I choose to live my life, is that I want to be optimum, and I want to provide my body with absolutely everything. I'm going to do all the things I can to maximize my health. And based on the research that I've looked at, really, I think it's you can't argue that animal protein is a necessary part of that diet. So we actually talk about eating protein with every meal. Now I'm going to give you a couple of reasons why. I'll come back to the hierarchy principle. One of the reasons that protein is such a valuable part of your diet is that it's actually a great way to raise your metabolism. So some of you on this call may be interested in losing weight. I mean, that was part of the headline. You know, changing your body composition, maybe losing fat and gaining muscle. Well, we know that protein, when you incorporate optimum amount of protein in your diet, it's going to improve or increase your metabolism. It actually increases as compared to a similar amount of calories from carbohydrate, from you know, something like from sugars. It's going to increase your metabolism by 3x. Number two is that it's really powerful at stimulating your satiety signal. That means that you get your brain gets a signal that you're full more quickly when you're eating protein. For this reason, I actually recommend that you eat your protein first. So if you've got a plate with, you know, let's say you've got steak and like mashed potatoes and veggies, I eat the steak first because, I mean, it's delicious, probably the most tasty thing on the plate, but also it's going to help to stimulate that satiety signal earlier so that you don't overeat. Number three is that it slows digestion transit time, which actually helps your body to extract more nutrients from the foods that you're eating, because it allows for that the appropriate contact time with the lining of your gut. And it also gives you that more mechanical sense of fullness, which also helps to reduce that kind of need for eating. Number four is that it improves your insulin sensitivity. This is a big deal right now, or not just right now, but over the last couple of decades, where we've seen these major spikes in the rates of diabetes and pre-diabetes. So we know that approximately 20% of the population is either diabetic or pre-diabetic. And what that actually means, you can equate that to one of your essential organs, your pancreas, is failing, right? And we're seeing kids as young as 12, 13, 15 years old being diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. And that literally means that they're an organ that's meant to last as long as their heart, right? Or as long as their any other organ, it's failing, in their second decade of life, right? That's really scary. There's obviously something really wrong with the way that we're approaching diet if that's happening. So eating protein actually improves how your body responds to insulin, meaning that to tie back to the pancreas, the pancreas doesn't have to overwork. Number five, is it reduces cravings. That comes down to the high nutrient density. A lot of cravings comes from the actual signaling to the brain that's saying, like, I'm deficient. I need to eat more. I need to fulfill these requirements for these essential nutrients. When you're eating high quality animal protein, you're going to be flooding your body with ample amounts of all these micronutrients. And number six is that it helps to build bigger engines. Again, if you're looking at a body composition goal, this one is big because as you're, let's say you're combining some diet and exercise changes, you want to kind of optimize or maximize the benefits you're getting from the exercise. If you're eating good quality protein, that's going to help to build bigger muscles, right? It speeds up the process, lots of research around that. And we know that your muscles are by far the biggest way of burning energy. Okay, so if you're looking to burn fat off your body, that's literally that's the way that it happens largely. And so you can help to build bigger engines, and that's also going to the combination of that's going to help to build stronger bones. Okay, so those are the 6 reasons why we argue having protein with every meal is essential or really important. I mentioned a concept here because often the question comes up, it's like, well, I hear you, Dr. McPhee, but there's, I just have this real problem with like the quality of meat, and like all these documentaries out there about just how terribly animals are treated. And look, I'm with you. Okay, I really am not I do not like the way that factory farming processes occur, and that's why I personally choose to seek out local pasture-raised animals, ones that are treated extremely well. They get to live what I would call their by design life, meaning like they just get to be a cow or be a chicken, right, in their natural environment or as close as possible to that. And they get the benefit of being protected from predators from their from the farmers. And in return, when it comes time, their farmers get to benefit from the exchange, by producing high quality protein and other products, and then selling them on to consumers like me. So I think it's a great cycle. I'm a huge believer in buying local when it comes to food. And so the hierarchy principle applies really well here. And I like what Michael Pollan has to say, because it's not just about the, I could say, eating beef is good for you, but really we want to consider, okay, well, the animal that beef comes from, like how healthy was that animal? And the reality is that if it comes from a, high volume factory farmed process, then that is likely to be not a very healthy animal. Okay, I can't say that for certain, but it certainly is. There's lots of research around the decreasing quality of the product. Now, in contrast to that is like, one of the farms that I have bought from in the past here, those animals are, they're put to pasture as calves. They literally have to fend for themselves, but they get ample access to grass and a little bit of hay in the winter. But otherwise, they're just basically living like a quasi wild life. And so as a consequence, they're super, super healthy, right? Because they have to be. And that quality meat, so in this case in beef, we call that grass-fed, grass-finished beef. Okay, lots of options here in Ottawa. So if anyone has any questions about that, please, you can send an email, and I am happy to share the farms that I choose to buy from. Dr. Craig also, I know there's an order coming up with a farm called Coots Country Flavors. They're actually an aggregate. They sell on behalf of a bunch of different farms. That'll be coming up at the end of August, and actually good timing. If you want to get in on that order, just let us know. You'll get access to an order form, and they deliver right to our door. Okay, so the hierarchy when it comes to beef would be the grass-fed, grass-finished. Chicken would be pasture-raised. You could look at like fish, like wild fish is better, and we want to think of like smaller fish, so you don't get too much of the heavy metal consumption. But you want to think of animals that are living their by design life. So actually, and another part of that is wild animals. So if you're friends with a hunter that gets a moose, right? that's great. See if you can get 100 pounds of moose meat. That stuff is gold. Okay, so the last one, and I want to just make sure I get through all three of these. The last tip, and this one's, it seems super easy. Eat your vegetables. I would say that this one is, everyone gets this, right? There's no pushback on eating your vegetables. Some people push back on the protein side of things, but universally, people recognize that when you eat more vegetables, you're likely going to be healthier. And that's something that I definitely borrow from my vegetarian background, because I grew up eating a ton of vegetables. A good way of thinking about vegetables is eating lots of colorful vegetables. So if you're making a salad, trying to get every color of the rainbow in there. You want to think of, once again, where we can optimize the nutrient density and lower the chemical toxicity. At this time of the year, buying local is a great way to do that. One of the challenges with the food that you get in the grocery store is that it's often picked days or weeks before it ends up in our refrigerator. And there's a decay process that happens with the nutrients contained in that food. So the fact is that, if it's, let's say it's an apple that was picked 2 weeks ago in California, it's not going to have the same nutrient density as an apple that was picked yesterday. Okay, and so I always recommend local, even non-organic sources. Local is probably, from a nutrient density perspective, going to outweigh the cost of the chemical toxicity. A great resource to use when it comes to the, just reducing the chemical toxicity is the Dirty Dozen and Clean 15 list. This comes from a group organization called the Environmental Working Group. The link is there at ewg.org. You can download this list. They produce it every year, and they produce a nice, pretty I guess, image like this, and then you can also get access to the whole list. I think they look at over 200 products from your standard grocery store, and then they measure the amount of chemical toxicity. So we're talking about herbicides, pesticides, insecticides, and how much you would consume if you would eat that food. Okay, so you'll notice on the Dirty Dozen list some things that, you know, where you're eating the whole food, whereas the Clean 15 list, which is like the kind of the bottom end of the list, one with the least amount of toxicity, those are foods that we don't tend to eat the skin. So those foods are kind of naturally protected from those sprays and products. So I use this list all the time. A great example of how to use this, you know, for example, I will only buy like your cucumbers. I only buy organic, or in this case right now, I buy local. Whereas when it comes to like avocados, I'm okay to buy like just conventionally raised or non-organic, because I know that I'm not going to eat the skin, so I'm not going to get exposed to those chemical toxins. So that's just a great, like a kind of shorthand, a great tool to have. You can have that picture on your phone and make your grocery store decisions based on those lists when it comes to buying vegetables. So that brings us to the end. So we talked about the top 3 diet tips to lose weight and feel great. So number 1 is to eat real food, and eat real food first. Okay, we talked about how you can benefit from eating more protein. When it comes to protein, we want to consider the quality, where it's coming from. So buying local is a great way to assure yourself that the quality is of the highest quality. And then number 3 is to eat your vegetables. If you're simply just to do those 3 things, that's going to make I would argue that's going to make a huge difference in your diet, but also just in how you look, feel, and perform. So I would say, you know, commit next 30 days, just apply those 3 principles and see what happens, right? And that's the best part, is that you can just test. We can all be our own little research experiment and see how the body responds. Next week, we are going to get into this. This is actually, I find, a super interesting topic, one that both Dr. Craig and I have nerded out on quite a bit. You know, for the last probably 75 years, we've been literally steeped in this idea that fat is the devil. And, you know, is that actually true, right? We've all just accepted this as a part. It's just like a reality. It's just it's a truth, and you're better off to eat less fat, right? And somewhere in this belief is basically like to eat no fat would be the best. And you know, there's been a lot of research done on this in the last couple of decades, and which is really challenging that belief to the point where you know, I'm gonna you know what, I'm gonna save it for next week, but I'll leave you with that teaser. Is that actually bad for you, or is it a health food? So that brings us to the end. If you have any questions, please email either myself or Dr. Craig. I'd love to answer the questions on the next call. We'll be back same time, same place. So next Thursday, that's the 13th at 12 p.m. You'll receive a link beforehand, and we'll dive into part 2, the big fat lie. All right, thanks for your attention. We'll see you next week.